Hmm.
So, we had a tsunami warning.
I know. I was going to ask you about that.
Well, tsunami warnings are really interesting. So, like, ever since it might have been 2011, the big Japan one, but there was one prior to that, um, that brought tsunamis into the public consciousness in like coastal cities. Was it? There was. I can't remember now. Maybe it was in Malaysia or somewhere. There was the big one in 2011 was the one that
Hmm.
happened in Japan because there was an earthquake of a significant magnitude, and it caused. And that's the one that there's all the footage of and everything.
Right.
Um, Tsunamis are what was rare for Southern California, or even just the California coast, is like because of the way it's shaped. Um, I mean, especially down here, we even really get stuff like that. Um,
Yeah.
Earlier, oh no, I guess it was a year ago now. I'll kind of there was a tropical storm last summer that briefly went to hurricane status because all of the weather in the Pacific and along the equator is getting a little more nutty.
Right.
Um, just because that's the way the world is right now, and then everybody wants to talk about why and go back and forth, but whatever.
Yeah.
But there's a bunch of like more stuff happening on a more frequent basis, and so we had a really rare hurricane warning, and it could have really brought a significant storm surge to Southern California, but it didn't pan out. And any other time there's been any kind of like tsunami, so the earthquake that happened up at the other end of the Ring of Fire, up at that peninsula of Russia, the Kamchatka,
Hmm. Yep.
was pretty big,
Yeah.
like 8.8,
8.8.
yeah,
That's gigantic.
yeah, and it would like if it happened now, like you and I would like it would knock us out of our chairs, like,
Right.
and things would crack, like walls. It'd be a real problem. And then any bigger than that is basically like um significant, like biblical or like
Yeah.
Book of Mormon, like early part of the third Nephi, where the whole land, like the landscape changes. That's like you get up into that order of magnitude and it gets real exciting. So with tsunami warnings, what is often the case though is that it's the almost 100% chance it'll turn out to be nothing, but there's the slight chance that it could be something, and we know that because of like things like 2011 Japan, where it is an actual storm surge and a tsunami,
Hmm.
and it creates great havoc. Um,
Well, didn't I saw footage today of the volcano in Kamchatka, or if that's how you
yeah,
pronounce
yeah,
the
that's it.
name, like the volcano started erupting in that same spot, kind of around where that earthquake was. That's wild.
Well, that's
But
kind of what when I spent my time in 99 to 2001 in the Northwest in Seattle, I kind of realized on my own how significant of I didn't realize I'd never paid attention to all those active volcanoes that go through
hmm.
that's the Cascades, right?
Yep.
So
Cascade
Mount so
Mountain
Mount
Range.
Mount St. Helens obviously is the famous one. Mount Rainier, Mount Baker is super active at that,
Yep.
even at that time there it was like there was steam coming out the top of it. I didn't know that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the talk of the town was always, when is Mount Rainier gonna blow? Because if that one
Oh,
goes, yeah, I mean, it's
yeah.
that is a massive volcano. Then you get
It's
Yellowstone, you get the earthquake that they've talked about for so long that's going to happen along the Wasatch Front. Um, yeah, the world's moving.
so, and in Seattle, it had never, unless you've been there, it's even hard to see it on a map, but the city goes right to the water.
Hmm.
Like, and right there is where one big old tectonic plate dives but beneath. So
Yeah.
what is it? Maybe it's three. It's the San Juan de Fuca plate, and then it's the North American plate
Hmm.
right
Yep.
there. Um, and then it's like, oh man, this then there's nowhere to go.
No.
Like, but that's kind of what's interesting about being raised in the home of a in a geology home. My father's a geologist,
Oh,
and
that's
so like
awesome.
growing up, as you get to be, as I was like, I get into my teenage years and I was starting to ask more like intelligent questions or just like paying attention to the world. Like you're never going to get a geologist upset about an earthquake because they like for
Right.
off and on for years in California, it's always been that we grew up like in elementary school doing the earthquake drills and the stuff
Right.
like that. And then so it's always like, oh, the big one's coming and and we've had a couple big ones. I mean, but there's the one, the fault, the big San Andreas fault, but then there's other significant faults too. That's just the one that gets a lot of run that's the more active one. But
Right.
a geologist isn't gonna because if it's big because if an earthquake is big enough, there's not anything anybody can do. You're not
Hmm.
gonna you can't go anywhere. You can you can try and like it's if it's big enough, everyone's done.
Yeah, and hope you're not on the basement floor of an office building like I am.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Although even
I
like
have earthquake insurance, so I guess we'll see.
even if, although the way your house is probably structured, you actually might be pretty safe in the basement because you've got large, like load bearing, depending on your, like you're in a modern structure. Modern structures
Hmm.
are incredibly resilient to earthquakes. But where you live, though, in the Wasatch Front, and then you're in Pleasant Grove, like that whole, um, which and this I didn't know this until a couple summers ago. All of the not Seattle, Salt Lake Valley, the Utah County and everything, and like Bonneville
Hmm.
Lake, that used to be everything there used to be underwater. I mean, like
Right.
thousands and millions of years ago or whatever the timeline is, all used to be underwater, which means that where you're at, although you're a little further up toward the mountain, but like the valley, the Wasatch Front is basically like it's all lake bed. So a large
Hmm.
enough earthquake, the one that they suspect will happen at some point. In fact, I mean, that's why it's interesting to see like how advanced the retrofitting of the Salt Lake Temple is super fascinating.
Right.
Because what'll happen with a big enough earthquake is that ground will liquefy.
Hmm.
It'll just like
Yeah.
everything will just crumble. Um, unless it's properly like outfitted. That's why like the huge floating footings that they put underneath the foundation of the temple, it's like it's designed to be able to shift the entire thing 8 feet in any direction.
Hmm.
That is amazing.
And they've been working on that rebuild for years now at this point. I don't even know when the estimated time is when they're going to finish. But it's been incredible to watch the construction progress go on. But I mean, like to your point, like thousands of years ago, we know this whole area was underwater. I've
Yeah.
always found it fascinating when you look up at the mountain range and you see like the rock structure is angled,
Oh yeah.
like it's shot up out of like just out of the earth.
So what's really cool as you start, especially as you start to come up through towards heading north up the 15 into Payson, Springville, Spanish
Hmm.
Fork, that area, Santa Quinn. That's
Yep.
out of order, but like
Yep.
before Provo, on both sides, but particularly like further south of Provo on the to the west, and then as you get into Provo and then there's the big sheer mountains. You can see the water line.
Hmm.
Um, which is really kind of cool where the water line used to be many years ago. And then you can even see like as you get up into like places like not the past the point of the mountain, but then up towards where Salt Lake ends and you go into Bountiful
Bountiful.
and
Yep.
then even further up into like if you're in Logan and you're about to drive through Logan into Logan Canyon, you see that my dad always loves to point out these huge shelves where that were basically like the shore of the top of what is now referred to as Bonneville Lake.
Hmm.
Um, and it's all there. It's really cool.
That's awesome.
It's super cool.
Yeah, when I heard the notification about that earthquake yesterday, I think initial reports said it was like an 8.1, and then they were like, no, 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 wait a second, that was an 8.8, which I guess once you get past 8, it goes up like exponentially like magnitude wise of like how strong that earthquake is. And then they're issuing advisories or like watch, and then it turns into an advisory, and then like a full-blown warning for
Yeah.
Hawaii, Alaska, like all the way down the Pacific coast. So, I don't have you seen any like stuff going on down your area, like Southern California?
Nothing significant changed here in Southern California at all.
Hmm.
There you could tell that the ocean at one point last night around 1 a.m. and there's some like webcam footage or I was watching a couple live streams of like weather cameras on the island of Maui and the island of Oahu, and you could see when the ocean changed.
Hmm.
Like, what's really interesting though is to compare it to the other thing I've kind of watched a lot of, and this is all, I mean, it sounds like I'm doing research, but it's like YouTube research. I've watched a lot of the footage because it fascinates me, like the 2011 Japan tsunami, and you can watch the ocean like, I mean, it's not like the movies where like this big, although it can be like there could be an actual like big like wall of
Hmm.
water. It's just this like all of a sudden the water just starts just starts
Yeah.
going inland, and you can't.
You're like, wait a second.
It's
I can see
crazy.
fish. Yeah. Wait,
Um,
so were you in Seattle? Because I remember this vividly because it was a big earthquake. It was lunchtime, my junior year of high school.
oh yeah.
Me and my buddies, we left because you can go off campus because you're big boys. And we were at the McDonald's. And I
Hmm.
remember sitting in the McDonald's right during in lunchtime, and then all of a sudden, like the mirrors on the wall, everything just started boom, boom. And I want to say that probably would have been in 2000,
That was 2000.
and it was a 7.3. So you were there. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, I was in. I happened to be in Marysville at the time, although I wasn't serving
Mm.
in Marysville. I think we were at a. It must have been a whatever
That's where
day
I got my driver's license. I
in
got my driver's
Marysville.
license at the DMV in Marysville.
What's funny about that earthquake is that even having been for so the largest earthquake that I was alive for in Southern California, although I didn't experience it, was the 93 Northridge.
Hmm.
That was the last big significant one where there was like damage done in LA. But I don't remember feeling that. So the one that I experienced in Seattle was the first one that I remember like I've ever fully experienced an earthquake.
Hmm.
And it's super disorienting. It's really
Yeah.
weird
Yep.
because you're dizzy. You almost feel like you're dizzy.
Hmm.
And then you realize that the whole like everything's everything's moving.
Right.
It's and then you just kind of go, and it feels like this, and this is what's always fascinated me about it. So even all the earthquakes that we're talking about, and even that one in Seattle, and that was a big one.
Hmm.
It was the duration was like less than technically like less than 10 seconds. I remember
Hmm.
because like it's doesn't sound long at all, but when you're experiencing it, it feels like an eternity.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then what fascinates me about that though is the description that we have, and this is where I really like to I really like to have Book of Mormon discussions about this. Although I haven't well we can this is a tangent. I don't like I've avoided listening to too many like Book of Mormon podcasts unless
Hmm.
it's like something that's doctrinally based or from the church because
Right.
like it too often the discussion gets just wacky. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm in the
Um,
same boat.
Not that there aren't good ones out there. I'm sure there are, but so like in the Book of Mormon, the description of the earthquakes that happen around the period of time, in Third Nephi, leading up to the crucifixion of the Savior, those all of that turmoil lasted. It says about 3 hours.
Hmm.
And then my dad pointed out to me when I was young, I forget the exact phrase, but it's like, it says that it describes it as being about 3 hours. Some say it felt longer,
Yeah.
which is
Really.
interesting because it's like, yeah, it probably felt like it was never going to stop. Like even 10 seconds is like, it feels like an hour.
Right.
But for it to have taken place steadily over 3 hours, and that the descriptions of how the landscape looked afterward are pretty significant. And I don't think we have a true grasp yet on just how much changed during
Hmm.
that time on this continent. Do you know what I mean? Because we don't have
Right.
other, I mean, although I have some papers from my dad and from geologists, both like from other universities, but it's interesting to read papers from BYU geologists that have done like papers on that chapter specifically, but then
Hmm.
also like other records of significant events around the same period of time, and they like kind of line it up.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
That's super fascinating. I'm when I was serving in Chile, because that's kind of a hotbed. I want to say that's right along the Ring of Fire as well. I mean, there's volcanoes all
Oh
over the
yeah,
place
yeah.
where I served. I think I went through probably three earthquakes when I was serving my mission, but the big one that hit when I was done, I want to say was that '07. I can't remember. I just know it was a big earthquake, and there was an actual tsunami that wiped out one of the fishing uh, port towns called Talcahuano, which is a neighbor, like a sister city to Concepcion, which is the mission I was called to. But that wall of water went and hit basically like, you know how they in Utah they talk about the bench? So there's
Right.
homes that are built in the valley, and then you get some of the activity that goes up to the bench where people live, and that's usually kind of where normal snowfall will settle in on the bench.
Mm-hmm.
Like that city, Talcahuano, basically got hit in half, and everybody that was living south of that, like half side of that bench, got wiped out. And I had a cousin that was serving there at the same time, and their entire mission basically turned into a let's go serve,
Wow.
Mormon helping hands type service mission. It was all recovery post earthquake, and it was 2011. I want to say that one was
Was it?
2011 as well. Yeah,
Whoa.
I'm
That's
gonna look it up.
interesting.
Hold on. Talcahuano tsunami.
Look that up too. Huh.
Damn browser. 2010. That was 2010 Chile earthquake. Tsunami reconnaissance, everything. That was big news. I remember when that happened. I saw the news and I just like, you know me, I'm a crier. I broke down. Molly's like, "What's
Yeah.
wrong?" I was like, "My entire mission just got rocked by one of the biggest earthquakes they've had in years." And a city that I'd never served in, but it was part of our mission, just basically got wiped out. Um, yeah,
That's crazy.
that was 2010. It was a 9.5.
We don't have that here in North America. The last thing that I can remember that comes close to that, where one city took the whole brunt of something, aside from smaller towns and things like that with tornadoes and hurricanes, is the Hurricane Katrina.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, there's also been other significant ones, but where like a town, like literally, um,
Just
you
got
know,
swallowed up.
yeah, or it
Yeah.
would be like New York and 9/11 kind of
Hmm.
thing, where like a
Yeah.
whole city is like truly devastated.
So let me ask you this then, on the topic, do you feel like this is biblical prophecy of the end times and what we read in the scriptures about the tumult and activity
Yeah,
during the end of days?
without question.
Hmm.
It's too frequent and it's too specific. Like,
Hmm.
and those, it's, I mean, and the other thing I think that points to the fact that it is that most of the time it's used as a like a punchline now.
Yeah,
So much so
right.
that no one takes it seriously.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I mean, even within religious circles or people that read So even so, non-LDS Christian-based faiths, like their only experience with that is going to be the New Testament, really. Like
Hmm.
even the old, like they're only going to know, or they're going to know enough to reference like the Book of Revelation. They're not going to
Hmm.
know the other more like, um, not that it's super esoteric, but stuff in like the Book of Daniel or the book, obviously the Book of Isaiah, and no, like that's even lesser known.
Hmm.
It's a little more talked about in the church because there's so many references to it in the Book of Mormon and the Doctrine and Covenants. But it's yeah, I think it. I think I think without question.
Yeah.
I don't have any. I have no doubt.
Hmm.
I think
Yeah.
that it's been that way since um like I've always had I've always been paying attention to it. There's just always
Yeah.
something about it like that's I can't say it spoke to me, but um, I think part of the reason we avoid talking about it is it's almost too radical to think about. It can be a little scary because
Right.
it's pretty graphic, the descriptions, at least scripturally.
Yeah.
I think that some of the things are literal and I think some are metaphorical, and I think most are both.
Hmm.
And we can't comprehend the part. So like I think if what is happening in the Middle East and just the Gaza Strip, like let's say the
Hmm.
Gaza Strip was California and there was that level of actual literal warfare, building, bombs back and forth, missiles, starvation, and that kind of thing. I think that I think we would have a much different collectively. I think we'd have a much different like, oh, this is because that's
Yeah.
like in your face war, and we haven't in the in North America we haven't had that since the threat of the existential threat of communism and the nuclear war,
From Cuba. Yep.
or right, Cuba, or Pearl Harbor, where we were actually attacked. The closest we've had since then, even the Vietnam War, was where we were more viscerally like engaged in something that was pretty violent, and we weren't doing well. Or then it's terrorist type bombings like Oklahoma City or nine
Yeah.
11.
Yep.
9/11 was the last time that we had a national day of prayer. Like we had a
Hmm.
national moments of silence. Even the years leading after, for the first couple of years, we had like national moments, like moments of silence
Yep.
in commemoration. But that's, dude, 9/11 was before, essentially, not the internet existed, but it was really before the internet.
Hmm.
9/11 is what launched us into a 24-hour cable news cycle.
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah.
scroll, even something that we take for granted now, like the scroll at the bottom of not that anybody even watches cable news now, it's different, but like
Right.
the scroll,
Uh-huh.
that's when that came into, that started happening then,
Right.
because there was so much information that needed to be updated constantly, that launched us into the 24-hour news cycle that we have now.
Right.
So that's wild to
That
think about.
that was a very interesting time because that was the exact year, 2001, that most of the BYU crew we were all freshmen in Budge Hall. And I remember I woke up that morning because at the time, I thought back in the day, I thought I wanted to be a chemical engineer. So I declared right out the gate my freshman year chemical engineering. And I had an intro to chemical engineering class that started at like 8 a.m. And I remember I woke up that morning, got dressed, wiping the sleep out of my eyes. I go downstairs in the lobby, and there was already a group of like 10, 12, 13, 14 people huddled around the TV. And they were watching the footage after the first tower had been hit. And
Whoa.
I'm sitting there like, what is happening right now? And I'm looking at the TV, and then I'm looking at my watch, whatever. It's like, I got to get to class. And I remember busting tail to my class, and as soon as we got there, my professor's head, it was just like he was in tears. He was unconsolable. crying, and basically like when we all got there, he said, something bad has happened. We've been attacked, and we're not holding classes today. So you guys go home, and if you want to be plugged into the news, go ahead. But one of the World Trade buildings in New York City has been hit by an airplane, and that was even before the second one hit. That was a wild day, but that happened when I was a freshman in college. Wild. And I'm sure Brad and Matt or Seth or, anyone else would tell you their experience of what happened that morning. But yeah, we were all in Budge Hall together when that happened.
That's interesting.
Hmm.
Um, I wish I had paid more attention. Um, and I think it would be impossible now for any documentary. Maybe somebody someday, some like professional filmmaker will figure it out. It would almost be impossible to do it without some type of like. Um, I was thinking about the early months and weeks of 2020, right before
Hmm.
the lockdown.
Mm.
And because that, again, if we're talking about something that occurred that everybody can point to the time, and I mean like the world, like not
Yep.
just like at that point, but like, um, and it was happening so fast that like we didn't have time yet to think about the politics of it. All that garbage came later,
Right.
but and then the first couple weeks of lockdown, like I think that would be really interesting if there was any way to like revisit it other than what we can like discuss from memory.
Right.
And that was a period of time too, early on. Like I took my cues from, and as I do now, and this is actually I remember a friend of mine at the time, a woman that I was date. We had just started dating, and we eventually broke up because she moved to another state. But she was a member of the church, but we had this discussion because I remember think everybody was like, is this really happening? Like no one knew, and
Hmm.
everyone was just starting to, oh, maybe we should not shake hands. And maybe
Yeah.
we should, like, no one was social distancing. That wasn't a thing yet, but everyone was being a little careful about don't shake hands, wash your hands a lot, that kind of thing. And we were even joking about, like, I was like at certain meetings, like, everyone stopped hugging. Like,
Hmm.
and that didn't bother me at all. I'm not a big hugger, but like everyone was just being like, kind of, and then face masks. Some people were starting to wear face masks and things, and it wasn't a total panic, and so it seemed like just prudent. Oh, we're just generally being more hygienic. Okay, there's nothing wrong with this.
Right.
And then but it still was hard to grasp. Like, wait, is this like something to take serious?
Hmm.
So when the church said, no, we're shutting down everything, temples, church, no church meetings, etc. I, I just remember going, oh, okay, so it's real. Like, not
Hmm.
because I look to the church for all my, like, I don't wait to act until I see what the church is doing, but I use that as like a touchstone. And my friend, she kind of thought that was a very simplistic. She's like, did you really like? She was kind of like, she was having kind of a crisis of faith at the time,
Mm.
and she's like, you need the like. I just remember having a funny conversation about. She's like, you needed the church to tell you. I'm like, no, I didn't need the church to tell me. But when a worldwide organization like the church says across the board everything's closed,
Right.
like, oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Now
I mean
I'm
that's eventually why at that time, because if I remember right, if my memory serves me, I think the official date was March 17th of 2020 was
That's
when
right.
the 2 weeks started to
That's right.
slow the spread, right? And we were all okay because we were getting these projections from these prestigious universities out of the UK and stuff saying like this thing has the potential of wiping out like 20% of the population. And so we're like, okay, 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 that's
Okay.
understandable, right? We can
Yeah.
close down. And my parents were serving a mission in South Africa and they'd been out for 15 months. And that's where they were closing down missions and they were sending everybody home, right?
Whoa, yeah,
On these
yeah.
massive flights, right? My
That's
mission
right.
president, President Hawkins, was serving as an area presidency uh, member in South America, and he was responsible for trying to get all of the missionaries out of Argentina, out of Chile, out of Peru, like
Whoa.
sending everybody home, right? And I just remember that like sitting around like, okay, yeah, it was like a 9/11 moment where we were like, okay, we're gonna band together and try to get through um this and we're all concerned because we're getting these projections out of the UK that are saying that hey, this could potentially be like a borderline Ebola type virus that could kill a bunch of people. And then yeah, then things started happening and unfolding. Oh
Yeah, and
man.
so what I think came out of that time, aside from the fact that once we, I don't know, we kind of have an understanding now of the physical sickness and how whatever it was with COVID and with respiratory disease and the health, the actual physical health part of it. Because the other thing that happened, and this is why I think it relates more to as an indicator of something on a biblical level that's like, here's an indicator that the world's like, so I don't like the phrase world coming to an end because I don't
Hmm.
believe that that is what's going to happen. I think
Right.
an old way of thinking and an old way of living will come to an end. I don't, so, I mean, there's this old way of speaking about it and I don't agree with it. Um,
Right. Well,
so,
I
but
to that point real quick, sorry to interrupt, but according to church doctrine, the earth will return to its parasitical glory. Like, so there is no end. It's a transformation. It's a transition into something new, like you said.
yeah, it'll be the transition will begin at the beginning of what's referred to as the millennium, and
Right.
then at the end of the millennium, that's when stuff gets real dramatic, and
Right.
then it's over. That's when the world's
Hmm.
over,
Yep. Over.
or mortality.
Right.
Um, Two things. So yeah, I think that what happened in the COVID period was the beginning of everything got ramped up in terms of division, lack of unity. There's a total now. I mean, it was all everything was divided like politically, and there was all this back and forth stuff. But things have been since that time, since 2020, things are much more divisive.
Hmm.
I mean, obviously, the
Yeah.
world's
100%.
the world's more violent. People are angry. People aren't angry enough. Okay, so all these things. AI is freaking everybody out. Some of it, and some of it's awesome, and some of it should freak us out. I don't know. Like I don't know
Right.
enough about it. Things happening at a things are happening at a much more rapid pace. But the other thing that I think about what we believe to be the case, the period of the millennium will look and will occur and look a lot differently than I think that we're used to. And I really started thinking about this actually at the end of 2019. I
Hmm.
went to I went in person to General Conference and I remember being struck by what President Oakes had talked about, which is um, he talked about like we have certain old age. There's a lot about the next phase of mortality that we don't have a lot of understanding of because we don't know. There's
Hmm.
only certain things have been like revealed that we can point to as like this is factual and this is actual doctrine. My personal take on it is that it's going to look a lot different than like we might think, and I think the people that will be here are not going to be the people that we would initially think would be here. Do you know what I mean? I
Hmm.
think that we're going to see it, and I think the young people and the youth that are like of your children's age are the like I think they're the future leaders. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
I mean, I think they're the future leaders, obviously, of no matter what happens. But I think that time is coming sooner. I believe it's imminent. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so the role of people that are older, like I think what our family structures are going to look like and the way that we execute church service and church callings will be different than we expect, but it'll look shockingly similar to what we do now.
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think that like um, I think there's a bigger what am I trying to say? The principle of church, a home-centered church, home-centered church supported. I'm misquoting that. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, no, that's what I was because I was thinking as you were saying that I think there's a big reason why over the years you've seen already a transition in the way that worship is handled, I guess, quote unquote. Where, because I remember stories from my dad saying, hey, we'd wake up and we'd go to a meeting at 8 a.m. and then we'd go home and take a break. And then we'd come back at noon and we'd have sacrament meeting. And then we'd take a break and then we'd come back at 6 p.m. And the entire day was built around worship and going to a place with your neighbors where you could, worship together and gather and, partake of the sacrament, things like that. And then that turned into the 3 hour block. All right, we're going to take all those 3 hours that were spread throughout the entire day and we're going to cram it down to three. And then that three turned into two, which we've talked about, right? And then really what I see it as now is like when things get rough and if things really do hit the fan, it's a home-centered, community-centered, love thy neighbor, like really love thy neighbor type approach where it's like we might not go to buildings and get together as big groups of people. We might just be out and about serving one another and loving one another and putting these gospel principles to practice
The
with our
period of
neighbors.
yeah. So
That's how I see it.
from a church perspective, I think that the COVID time was like a ripping the band-aid off of this is what it looks like to worship from home
Hmm.
because it wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have happened otherwise.
Right.
And I don't know why no one talks about this. Maybe it doesn't have to be. It's just something that I noticed, and I only have my perspective anyway. I personally put a lot of emphasis, or there's a lot of meaning to me behind the fact that COVID happened, March of 2020, lockdown. Now we're home, and people that are it's by no coincidence that we were into a new type of learning curriculum, the Come Follow Me curriculum, and the book that we were on in the year of 2020 was the Book of Mormon.
Right.
How
Yeah.
much did you and your family read the Book of Mormon in 2020?
Oh, we hammered through that bad boy. It was
That's
awesome.
there is no way that's an accident.
Hmm.
That's not coincidence. It's and I've seen the ramifications. I've seen the consequences of that, or good consequences in my family since then, without question.
Hmm. Yeah.
I think that there will be more of that. I don't know if there will be another. It would be impossible to say if there'd be another like, but if there was another super dramatic thing like we can't go to public places, we must shelter. I don't even like saying it. It was so overused, but we have to, like, or a natural disaster could be anything. But what we've learned is, oh, we don't need the church building to be the church.
Right.
But it's when we start also then on the as a side note when we started going back, eh, man, I love my church building and it's old. Like it needs to be remodeled again and like it's awesome. It is different, but it
Hmm.
is like oh like that was the first like this is it's time to like let the faith be tried
Hmm.
like see where the strong points are and see where the weak spots are. Do you
Oh, yeah. I mean, for me during that time too, I remember, so we were in the Cedar Hills 7th Ward, which was our neighborhood in our old place that we lived at during that time. Um, when we first started coming back after that 2 weeks, when they said, okay, we're going to start meetings again, but except we're going to alternate. So every other Sunday, it's A through M, last names. You guys come that Sunday. And then the following Sunday, we're going to switch. And so you guys go home, watch it on Zoom, and then N through Z, you guys are going to come and be in person, but you got to sit 6 feet apart, and everyone wears their masks. And then I obviously, being the D-bag that I am, I was the one that always went without a mask, just and I'd eyeball around and just be like, I'd look for the other guys and yeah, you, me, yeah,
Yeah.
It's like we're the ones that aren't wearing masks. I could go off on a huge tangent on that thing, but the whole the whole point
Yeah.
is like it was really interesting to see how that process happened, and then like even during like a testimony meeting or anyone that would get up and give a talk, the second counselor would get up and with his Clorox wipes, like after anyone even touched the pulpit, it was wipe, 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 rub, rub.
Oh yeah, yeah. I
You remember
remember.
that? Yeah.
Yeah. So which is funny because like it's impossible now to even look back on those like little or big things without the coloring of wait a minute, is this right? You know what I mean? And what we haven't had and will never have is like even because for a period of time, I fully believe that before everything got monetized and um, uh, it became a point of like a political like touch point kind of. I don't even know how to describe it. I think for like those first, or that's why I would love to revisit those early weeks where there was a genuine sense of we're all going to do the best that we can with the information
Hmm.
that we have.
Right.
And then what we haven't had since that time, and like as more things have come out and what was true, what was correct, what was incorrect, we haven't had because the world doesn't. I hate to sound naive, but it's like we're not going to get the from the head of whoever is going to say, wow, you know what? I was real. We were really incorrect on fill in the blank. And what's
Right.
really ironic about that to me, I don't even know if this makes sense, but like if you think about like when people like even now we still love like Americans especially, but like the collect like we love it when somebody is just like when they come out and they go, and they own it and they just own it like, well, I really messed up. Like we're way more forgiving than we realize
Hmm.
when we feel like we're getting the truth, the authentic, like, wow, you know what? You're right. I was wrong. But because like so often that kind of stuff is so litigious and like blames assigned and stuff like that, like, well, I don't know if we can do that anymore, but we used to like, I'm trying to think. I can't think of any like good examples off the top of my head, other than maybe like I was gonna say Bill Clinton, but I don't know if he ever apologized for anything. I'm trying to think of the last like really good apology.
Hey, speaking of, check this out.
That's a great shirt.
It's awesome.
Wow.
It's one of my faves.
Yeah, maybe that is a bad example because like I mean, what am I trying to what like they're
No,
the
I get
same.
I get it, but and
But
that's the thing. So here, I'll share
oh,
this
I know
and
what I was gonna. Yeah, go
no,
ahead. You go
go.
ahead.
No,
I was
you go
gonna
ahead.
say so. Like, I want to say since we're talking about politics again, as I've said from the very beginning of these conversations that you and I have, all those politicians are the same to me, and the perception that they're somehow actually like invested in the well-being of their like let's talk about it from the Democrat Republican side that they're absolutely the same. Maybe they don't like maybe they genuinely don't agree with each other, but I don't believe it at all. So I don't think that I don't think the political money machine lends itself to that anymore. I think it's been
Hmm.
like that for a long time because it's too much money and there's too much power and there's too much cover up. And so the most recent one is like current administration and President Donald Trump really ran heavily on, well, he ran heavily on a lot of things, but he like made a real big thing about I'm going to reveal the truth and any secret that's been kept from the people. I'm going to reveal the Epstein files
The
and
transparency, yeah.
we're going to be transparent. And then that that's just one narrative. And this isn't a slight on the Trump administration. It's a slight on the power machine that we've created, and this idea that there's like somehow a difference. So, because now the narrative is very different. Like, oh
Right.
well, there are no files, and it's all a hoax. I'm
Yeah.
like, wait,
Are we still talking about that?
wait a minute. Like, and that could be that is an example. I'm sure I'm not well versed enough like off the top of my head, but in every administration going back through time, there will be something like that. The Vietnam War, the involvement in any of the world wars, the Cuban Missile Crisis, the anything that's got the feel of a cover up. I mean, like we talked about it last time we talked, like there's these documentaries now of nobody would have believed at the time in the 60s and 70s that there was a conspiracy and there were covert actions within the FBI to monitor people that were activists and anti-war, and that the FBI would conduct surveillance like that on the American people. Nobody would have
Right.
believed that. You would have been an absolute nut.
And
This was
you
yeah,
shared that documentary with me, the 1971 documentary that you
yeah,
sent over to me. I watched it.
dude, it's so wild.
Amazing.
It's so wild. And it's what's weirdly comforting about that is that documentary, as far as I could tell, has the feeling of like no skin in the game. It is just reporting the way that it's reporting, like, no, this is what happened. And we know that happened. Like the
Yeah.
FBI was surveilling people, and here's the documents that say it. And at the time, we never would have believed it, and now we know.
Yeah. Well,
All
even
right.
I mean, rewind a couple decades prior. I mean, World War II and everything that came out of the liberal world order that was post World War II. I think that's just a prime example of what's kicked off this cascade of just events like that happening that transitions over to 1971, that transitions over to 2001 when the World Trade Centers get bombed and blown up and fall somehow the way they fell, and then all of a sudden we have the Patriot Act.
Right.
Like, what is the Patriot? I mean, talk about 1971. It's like the Patriot Act post World Trade Centers. It's like this never ends. And
if
all
10,
all I was
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
say
yeah,
is
yeah.
read the book of Helaman
Okay.
and learn about the Gadianton robbers. And so when you talk about right, left, Republican, Democrat, I agree. It's the same beast. It's the
Right.
deep state. It's the evil that abounds. It's the Gadianton robbers. Read the
Even
book of
something
Helaman.
is seemingly innocuous now, so in the smartphone era, if
Hmm.
back in, since we're talking about 2011, let's say 2010, 2011, everyone's pretty much got smartphones now,
Hmm.
which if even then, if we were talking about, hey, I think my social media and my phone, I think it's listening to me. I've seen ads.
Right.
Nobody would have been taken that seriously.
Hmm.
It would have been either a joke, or it would have been like, I don't think
Yeah, you're
have
crazy.
you shouldn't have technology. And now we know 100% that that's the case.
Hmm.
I could even now it's almost like it's almost a joke. Like I could say something into my phone, and I mean, if I type anything in any of my search engines, ads are going to come up
Yeah.
immediately. Okay, so now
Yeah.
we know that. So what this makes me think of now is, first of all, I had to figure out, and I'm interested in, like, we've talked about this before. Like, okay, so we know the world's crazy, and there's powers that be, and there's secret powers, and we can give them all these different names. In the scriptures, it's like the secret combinations, and it's like, forces of darkness, and it's all these things over there. It's the political party, and depending on who's your people, the other people, and then with it, okay, so there's all this, and
Right.
then the media, forget it. I mean, like the one thing that disappoints me about anyone that's like now shocked that the media is slanted, it's like, well, that's always been the case. So
Hmm.
it's an advertising based model, like, of course. So anyway, whatever. So advertising, marketing, advertising, big pharma. Okay, great. Now, what do I do to not let cynicism see? Because it's not the anger. There's anger and contention that's super dangerous and divisive.
Right.
But then there's also the like, other side of that, which is like apathy, and it's like, you know what? I don't want to talk about, like, I can't, like, I'll just avoid it. And then on an extreme level, what people do to escape, like either on a hedonistic level, or even if it's not like necessarily like just big like drugs and like escape,
Hmm.
actual mental reality, but just like tuning out and focus, and the intense focus on self-care and me, like that kind of like passive aggressive like selfishness that's sold to us. I
Right.
think that's as dangerous as anything. Do you know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Yeah.
I mean, nothing against self-care. Like you got to take care of yourself, and then ask, but above my concern for my loved ones or for anyone that's in need is what we've lost.
It's packaged, sold, and delivered in various different ways. And so self-care for those that I truly believe are malicious are it's going to be sold to you as the the pleasures, right? And you want to view pornography, just punch in Pornhub, you know, you've got access to all the porn you can ever watch in the world, right?
Yeah, or
You
even a website that isn't actually, I mean, that's in the name, Pornhub. But
right.
like if you go to Reddit, or if you go to Instagram, or if you go to literally anything, you don't have
You
to search very far if you want to find something.
I had a good, obviously without disclosing too much, I had a friend of mine that approached me and said, "I've got a problem." He's like, I started following certain pages on Instagram and the algorithm figured something out and just started
Yeah.
pumping pornography at me. And
Yeah.
it's nonstop. And he's like, I have a problem and I need your help, you know. So I tried my best to step in and do what I could to help that individual out. But yeah, it's not even just the blatant websites, it's social media, it's everything. And so your what I was getting to is your self-care is packaged in very interesting ways of, it could be sold to you as, hey, you need a break? Just go take a break and scroll Instagram for a little bit. Or it could be, hey, go outside and run a couple miles, or Netflix and chill, which
Right.
has, certain connotations. Or it's like, go read your scriptures. So I think that's a big trial that a lot of us are going through right now is figuring out what true self-love actually means and how to take advantage of that true principle and the spirit of that principle and what it really means is to love yourself versus what is being sold to us as a version of loving yourself. Do you kind of get what I'm saying there?
Yeah, what I've started to do in um, when I meet with guys that I'm working with, that I sponsor or am mentoring, maybe that's a
Mm-hmm.
better term, that are in various facilities, like, and so like sobriety, and they're trying to stay abstinent from alcohol and or drugs, and they're either part of a religious or a faith-based program, or they're part of a 12-step program, which the only difference there is that in a 12-step program, there is still a lot of talk about faith and God. It's just not attached to, there's no language, or it really goes out of its way to leave out language that could be affiliated with any denomination,
Mm-hmm.
because that can be a distraction.
Right.
However,
Or a point of conflict.
one of conflict. But what it does talk about, and in my opinion, in fact, I try to like highlight it more, is that if it's there's still a great emphasis put on a relationship, finding a God that an individual, finding a God and a higher power that an individual can believe in, and
Mm-hmm.
then going about treating that relationship like a divine relationship is a way to, that's one way to put it. And I think even within that context, people try to avoid, they really go they really tie themselves into knots, like not having it be about that. Like
Hmm.
it's almost like that's the punchline, which is like I went, this whole time I've spent trying to avoid the God idea, and yet that's the idea. It's the
Hmm.
only idea. If you really want to get like, it's the
Yeah.
only thing. So, um, I recently was in a conversation with two gentlemen, and I said, and they happen to be um, Christians of a particular denomination, but just generally Christians.
Hmm.
And I said, we were talking about what it means to like believe, like reconsider everything that you used to think about a relationship or a worship of God, and in this particular case of Christ as the Son of God, and what that means. But what does that mean to you individually? And so I had never asked anyone this before, but I said, what do you guys think about like the idea that we are God's children, like we're children of God? Oh yeah, yeah, no, we've always known that. Okay, what is that? But what does it mean to you? What does it mean to consider that you are that God has no grandchildren, that you are a son of God? Or one step beyond that, think of somebody else that you're actually think of somebody that really irritates you. They like recently, like in the last week, you were like, ugh, I don't like that person. That
Yeah.
person is a child of God. What does that mean? And that led to I like discussions that make it very like individual. Like if we're talking about self-care, but then what is my individual relationship? What is my individual relationship with a God that is interested in every aspect of my life, the way that a father would be?
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
is like that to me is an anecdote of that or reorients me to things that are the most important conversations that I could possibly have in a given day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I love that. I mean, today to finish my work day, I had a new patient schedule, and I keep it pretty simple in my office. And there's basically two delineations. One patient, which is the majority of my patients, will call and schedule because they want to come in and experience the functional neurological approach. And so I've trained my staff to talk to people on the phone. Are you coming in to see Dr. Oliver just as a for a chiropractic visit, or do you want to investigate other things? And those visits are far more thorough.
Okay.
So I look at my schedule. At the beginning of the day, this person was not on my schedule. I check, during lunch, and all of a sudden I've got this new patient scheduled, and it was scheduled for a chiropractic appointment only. So these are people that I assume are only going to come in for, 20, 30 minutes. They want to tell me that they tweaked their neck, checking a blind spot while they were driving down the highway or something like that. They want an adjustment, and that's
Yeah.
it. So I can do spinal
Yeah.
manipulation therapy. This guy, this guy schedules for a chiropractic appointment and sits down, and I knew like, and I just got this feeling like when as soon as he sits down in the chair, he starts going in. Back in 2013, I've had migraine head pain, and he starts going into this, and I was like, oh, this guy hoodwinked me. And I remember thinking for a second,
Oh.
I was like, he snuck in because there's a price difference too. If
Oh.
they take less time, if it's a standard chiropractic appointment, it's like $150 for an initial consult
Okay.
versus the 290 that I charge for the neurological assessment, right?
That's interesting. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so this guy sits down and proceeds to tell me for the first half an hour, which is usually the length of that visit, of all his problems that he's dealing with. And then he goes, and then he goes, and then he's like, my wife's been a patient upstairs at this clinic for years and years, and we love it here. And he's like, I didn't realize that you were in the same building and that you're a chiropractor. And he's like, but you're a neurologist as well. And I said, yeah, I am. And he goes, I wish, because inside my blood's kind of boiling. I was like, this guy's here to take advantage of me, which really he wasn't, and it turned out to be. And he said it out of his own mouth. He said, I wish I would have known about you sooner. I would have come to see you a decade ago. And as soon as he said that, there was something inside me that was like, Casey, knock it off.
Whoa,
Like,
okay.
your responsibility is to love these people that are coming to visit with you. And when they share that type of feeling, that type of testimony, like I did, there was no reason for me to sit back in my chair thinking like, oh, this guy, he's trying to jump through a hoop and take advantage of me.
But it's
And
because it's not out of the realm of possibility that somebody would do that. That's happened before.
it happened before. Absolutely.
And so your initial reaction, not your response, but your reaction was, oh, this is that. This is someone being like there was a
Sneaky.
level of, yes, someone's trying to be sneaky. Okay. So that, but that's, yeah. So that, but then as you, what I'm hearing you say is you didn't react. You kept
I
that
didn't react.
inside. And then when the authentic, when the truth did, like when he made it, when he kind of explained it, the more like toward the, it sounds like towards the end of the conversation, you then had another impression. You're like, oh no, he's being, he wasn't trying to like just get a free consult or the
Right.
less expensive,
And
right?
and to your point though too is the conversation you were having with those gentlemen that you mentioned. It was like, what does it really mean to be a son or a daughter of God? And how would you treat your sibling, plural, like siblings? And that was just my point of reflection today at the end of my day. It was like, man, this guy's 70 years old. He's in my office. He's telling me about all his problems. I probably could have charged him the full price for a neurological consult because that's really what it ended up being. But man, I love this guy. It's like I love this guy. Where part of me, and like part of it, the inside, like during the beginning of the consult, was where the adversary was sneaking in and trying to, shh, like, hey, this guy's trying to take advantage of you, you know? I don't know.
Because you
There's,
would, and you wouldn't have been wrong necessarily. That's why I think it's sometimes more subtle. It's not necessarily wrong and right. You
right.
were basing it on previous experience where you have been like, I mean, do you know what I mean? But in
Yeah.
this instance, there was a reason that you didn't respond and you just let it happen anyway. And then you came to this other realization. So that's like a better, like that's a pretty nuanced thing. Like, and you do have a business to run and a business to protect, and your services are priced the way they are because of based on expertise and experience, and it's the nature of the breadth of services that you like. You have to give.
And a lot of it is time. Like in my career, that's really what my business model is based around is time. And if you want to sit down and spend time with me, it's going to cost a little bit more, you know? And
Right.
so to be able to spend the time with this guy and then just realize like this guy just needs help, you know? Because usually like on an existing patient consult, when folks come in to see me, I usually schedule out 20 minutes. That's usually what my block of time is. And I'll get the person that I know for a fact when they come in, they're gonna take 30 and they're not gonna pay me any extra for the time that I spend with them when it was slotted at 20, but they take 30, right? But I think my point of all this is I think I'm getting to a point where I'm becoming more aware of really what it means to be a son of a father in heaven and a God that loves me, and to be a sibling and a loving sibling because those are his children too, you know? So,
Because I don't think like to speak about it, not to oversimplify, but it's like the faith in those in that context is, do I actually think that God wants me to be taken advantage of and will constantly put me in positions to be that I have to be hyper aware and suspicious?
hmm
No, I don't. Do I also just get to float through life and go, God's going to take care of everything? No, I don't think that either, but
Right.
like I do think that being receptive in each moment, like lead, because the moment can become something else
hmm
because you chose to invite that into it. Like you wouldn't have been wrong necessarily to, or set the like a firm boundary if maybe he really was, there was an element of truly wasting your time. Like, listen, I have to let you know we have to end it here, or I've got to charge you differently. But you,
Right.
and that wouldn't have been wrong. It just would have been what it was. But You gave it a moment. Something led you to let it see that through, to go to let it continue, and then you came to this other realization. And I don't think that it's always like that. I think there will be people in the future that will come into your office and then will be kind of like just have different, their intent is different. But
Right.
you can but even if you I, I like the idea of some of this stuff I can just let go. Like I'm going to do my best in every if my desire at the beginning of every day is I'm going to do my best in every interaction. And some of this stuff is so far out of my control. What am I going to do? Am I going to really worry about $5 extra an hour? Now that would
Hmm.
be over time, that's significant. And things are expensive. Things money needs to be saved and like yeah. Like and the right time to speak up for that will make itself apparent. But my motivation can't be the extra money per hour or like
Right.
the
100%.
and even if it is, that's not bad. It feels like certain things I'll have to like trust God to like let me know when it's time to like worry about those things
Right.
or like individual kind of in a within the context when it's appropriate.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I think the more important things are like if it's true that the home-centered church, we've started to think differently about our worship, and we don't need the church building for that. In the same way that we think about our temple service and our temple worship differently, and that we are to live inside, like as the leaders of our, like the prophet has recently said, living inside of our temple covenants
Hmm.
and a temple covenant mindset, that makes everything anywhere that I decide to go can be a holy interaction or I can
Hmm.
invite holiness or divine inspiration into it. And if it's not someplace I need to be, like I rarely find myself, I don't remember the last I'm not ever in positions of places where I don't need to be because
Right.
I'm not making those decisions anymore. I for a
Right.
time was doing a lot of that. I'm like, oh, this is not, I don't need to be here. You know what I mean? Like this isn't a good place to be, but I was
Yeah.
putting myself there anyway. Um, so that changes the way that that changes like my worship, that changes my work, and that changes my individual relationships.
Right. I'm looking up something here because this just came to my mind. Oh, I'm looking up Bible dictionary. I've always loved this, the definition that's listed in the Bible dictionary under the topic of home. And the funny thing is, too, I'd mention this, if I did not spend the time with that guy, and here's another thing that I realized as well. This guy's my neighbor. I had no idea. We just got chatting. I was like, "So where do you live?" And he's like, "Oh, Cedar Hills." I was like, "Oh, where?" He literally lives like 2 streets from me over this way.
Whoa, really?
Yeah. So he's my neighbor. Okay.
That's amazing.
Home. Oh, why is it not home? Hold on. Oh, I know why. Because it's not under home, it's under temple.
Oh,
So the temple, so in the Bible dictionary, when you look up temple, it says a temple is literally a house of the Lord, a holy sanctuary in which sacred ceremonies and ordinances of the gospel are performed by and for the living and also in behalf of the dead, a place where the Lord may come. It is the most holy of any place of worship on earth. Only the home can compare with the temple in sacredness. That's the first paragraph. And then it goes on and keeps talking about temples and history of temples and all that stuff, but I'll just repeat, only the home can compare with the temple in sacredness. It's pretty profound. I've always loved that for some reason.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know if yeah, I've never taken time to consider that. That's really interesting.
Yeah, look it up. I that's the other cool thing about the Bible dictionary is I forget the gentleman who quote
Gosh.
unquote or technically wrote the Bible dictionary, but I remember in Brother Johnson's uh, religion classes at BYU, he would have that gentleman come in. Was his name Matthews? Brother Matthews? That wrote the Bible dictionary, and he would have him come in as a guest speaker. And I took two courses from Brother Johnson at BYU, and brother the brother who wrote the Bible dictionary would always come in as a special guest, and I believe that he was the one that actually pointed that out to us underneath the definition of temple. I've always just
Wow.
found that like really, really, really special.
Wow.
Yeah. So I mean that's like to your point of stand in holy places and find avenues to to search for truth. I think you and I are both on a journey for truth, truth seeking,
Yes.
which is at this point in my life very, very, very important. And being able to tap into resources and avenues of where we can love self, and that inevitably becomes and transitions into being able to love your neighbor abundantly, even though you might be bugged, or you might think they may be taking advantage of you, or whatever it may be. If I didn't listen to that gentleman today and I didn't give him time, the other thing I had pause for was he's like, it's the end of my day.
hmm
Ah, give him time. I could tell that the guy wanted to talk, so just let him talk. He's your brother. Listen.
Yeah.
Listen to him.
That's interesting. It happened at the end of the day.
Very end of the day. Yeah. Tell me about Idaho. I want to hear your experience.
Oh yeah, it was well, it's amazing. I mean, that's my mom's side of the family is from there, and so last couple of years we've always tried to go for family reunions. But the last couple of years we've gone every summer. It's mostly just like we'll go and we'll see cousins and other family members, but it's just been my parents, my sister, and her husband, although he didn't come this time, but my sister and my niece, and we go and me, and we go up there and up at Bear Lake, and it's amazing up there. The other thing that I'm particularly fond of and sentimental about is that a lot of my pioneer or our pioneer um, ancestors are helped settle those areas
Hmm.
and are buried and at rest there, and so there's just like yeah, it's like I mean we're talking about like sacred family type feelings that really exist there. But I've spent more time over the last couple of years, like putting focus on that. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
I love that. Yeah,
So
that's
it was
awesome.
my parents' 55th wedding anniversary, and then they were married in the Logan Temple 55 years ago. So we
So
went
cool.
so we went there, and it was actually it wasn't like particularly, it was just nice to be there with them. It was one of those temple trips where it's like everything happened to like mess up the day, and you're
Yeah.
like, man, I just want to go.
Right.
Like there was traffic, like we had the reschedule, and I don't know, just like annoying things. And to the point that I kind of that doesn't surprise me now when that happens. I go, and this is okay. That just is an indicator we're on our way to somewhere that we need to be. And it wasn't particularly restful at first. It can be a little hectic getting in there, and you got to park and go in and change and everything. But when you finally get in and get settled, then you can reflect on, um, whatever it is. You can have your time of meditation
Right.
and worship. But to be there with them was pretty awesome.
That's so
It had been
cool.
a while since we'd done that.
That's awesome. I love that. So overall, it was a good trip. You were gone for how long? It was like a week?
Yeah, we went up there for a week. We drove up. Yeah, we got up there, so we spent a good week there. We were there like 6 days.
That's awesome. Very
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, they're like, and everyone's getting older, so it may not always be possible to do that
Right.
because it's not like an easy place to get to. Like
Yeah.
even if we had flown, we'd be flying into Salt Lake City and renting a car, but we decided, we decided to drive. And like, I'm always partial to road trips. I think road trips are like,
They're fun.
yeah,
It's good. It's good reflection time.
yeah, I think a lot of good things happen on road trips.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it was cool. And then there was a one or two legs of the trip where it was just me and my dad in the car, and they were my mom and sister and niece were in the other car. So we got to like, we're not particular. Oh, you know what we did? We listened to the 5,000th episode. My dad really likes the music and the spoken word. Um,
Nice.
and one thing I didn't know about music and the spoken word is they have a podcast now, and the podcast will be the weekly broadcast, but then also there's like a 30 to 40 minute segment of one aspect of, and the main, I forget the guy's name. The main guy will interview somebody like
Uh-huh.
podcast style, and some aspect or some individual that's tied with the production of the music and the spoken word. So the one that we listened to, and they do this every week, and the
Hmm.
one individual we listened to was the most recent one, or 2 weeks ago, I guess. Anyway, they were talking to the organist, who's been the organist now for over 30 years. And the music and the spoken word broadcast, since it started 1 week. The first broadcast ever was over the radio, obviously. And
Hmm.
it was 1 week before, talking about like periods of time before, like, we were talking about the period, like the week leading up to COVID. So
Hmm.
it, once the Great Depression started, like, but what was it, Black Monday or whatever in the
Hmm.
1929,
Right.
that happened 1 week. The stock market crash happened 1 week after the first broadcast of music in the spoken word.
No way. I didn't
Yeah,
know that.
I didn't know that either. And since the first broadcast, it hasn't missed a broadcast. They haven't missed 1 week.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Isn't that crazy?
That's
Not one,
impressive.
not through.
Holy smokes.
So, Great Depression, 30s, World War II, uh, whatever happened after all the wars and all the stuff after that, 9/11, COVID, nothing. Like they haven't missed,
That's consistent.
which is
That
crazy. And then like,
is.
and it's like, and so yeah, I didn't know much of, I haven't listened, I don't listen to it often. I do now, but that was something that were, we got to do together.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
How old's your dad now?
Um, 78.
Nice. Yeah. These are special times. My dad's 75, my mom's 70, and we got to spend last weekend up with them at their place. And they do this. My parents are funny. They do this thing now where it's like, oh, we want you all to come up. But like secretly, they have like this big project that they need done that they can't do
Oh,
because they're like not physically capable to do it anymore.
yeah.
So my dad busted out the chainsaw and we cut down like 4 trees, sliced it up, and then we stacked all the wood for him and did all that fun stuff. And
Oh,
then,
that's awesome though.
yeah, it was fun. But yeah, moments like that are, I mean, that makes you appreciate life for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's fun. Love you.
Love you, man.
Bye.
Love you, brother.
Love you, brother.